Did Sweden have an empire during the Viking Age era? Yes, they did. They used their women as a way of subjugating defeated enemies in a similar manner with how Mongolians used their daughters to gain leverage or the Byzantine Emperor over Kievan Rus. Sweden used their daughter to get the Ladoga area and the St. Petersburg region as a dowry, what's now St. Petersburg. After Erik the Victorious had supported Vladimir and helped him gain power in Kievan Rus. You could say that during this era, Kievan Rus were under a similar sort of tributary relationship with Sweden as during the Mongol era. But this time it was more beneficial for both parties because there were no burning down villages to the ground, and instead they focused on external Slavs, and Norse people focused and Swedes focused on external enemies like the Khazars or the Byzantine Empire or the Abbasid Caliphate or the Carolingian Empire. The Danes faced an invasion of Slavs and Swedes during Erik the Victorious' reigns. Adam of Bremen mentions that the Swedes used Slavic warriors to subjugate the Danes, and the main rival of this era was the Danes that contested Sweden's power status in the Scandinavian era. But the Swedes had not looked to the west, but Styrbjörn, Erik's nephew, had forced his hand into invading Denmark. There were two mentioned invasions before in Denmark, one with Olaf that got Swedish help to gain power, one with Erik that got Swedish help to gain power, and also Sigurd the Ring, according to legend, but that more legendary because it's not supported by contemporary sources. But Sigurd the Ring also conquered the Danes, according after the Battle of Blåvälil. The Swedes also had Estonian soldiers, so the Finns were also located in this empire. Estonians provided a military backbone, and some Estonian tribes at least were conquered by the Swedish Empire during this time, or the Rus Empire, and they called themselves Ruotsis. So when they talked about their relationship with Sweden, they called themselves Ros eller Ruotsi, and that spread to the Slavs. So instead of calling themselves Swedes, that is a native term, it became a Ruotsi. But according to older Swedish sources, this was all carried out by the Swedish kings that also had direct control over the areas in the Baltic Sea, while Kievan Rus was given to Erik Björnsson as a client state of Sweden with paying regular tribute to Sweden, gold and silver. Swedes did not care so much about land as gold and silver and status. This empire during Erik the Victorious, where he provided support to Vladimir, could be mentioned in older Swedish sources, and the older Swedish sources could cite older sources that got destroyed in the fire of 1697. But I think that the Swedes at the time ruled over a very large empire, roughly these borders, because the Estonians and the Balts are also mentioned as being tributaries of the Swedes during this time, and that the eastern countries paid regular tributes. That was something Norwegian and Icelandic skalds knew when they told stories. We also see a genetic influx, like during the Anglo-Saxon era in England, that got a lot of E1. E1 got E1, that is a genetic haplogroup of Scandinavian men, is got more located into what is now Ukraine, Belarus, and St. Petersburg area due to this evolution. But also Swedish females that followed. There are a lot of Viking necklaces that are for females that have been located. So this was a cultural exchange of a massive scale, and Denmark were not under Swedish dominion for a long time. More Sweden and the Slavs. And Sweden had a duarchy, and this is the reason why modern Swedish historians have a hard time putting pieces together, because before Styrbjörn they had a coup kingship. That's the most likely explanation for the discrepancy between Western church sources and Scandinavian sagas. You had a duarchy before Erik the Victorious, but after Erik the Victorious, the duarchy ended and it became more centered upon one person. And the eventual Swedish colony evolved their own culture and started to integrate with locals. And the power dynamic is very complex. You had Estonians fighting for the Swedish king, being Swedish soldiers and calling themselves Rus, even though because they themselves had been conquered, and they aided the Swedes at the Battle of Bråvellir. So you have a very interesting kind of cultural exchange between different people at the Baltic Sea, and called themselves warriors. Called Estonian warriors helped the Swedes defeat the Danes, according to legend. But that, I don't think it's legend. I think the Estonians aided Sweden, because there are a lot of archaeology that support the thesis that Estonians were under Swedish dominion. But that doesn't mean, if you're in an empire, that doesn't mean that you will wipe out every single foreign man. More, you integrate them into your empire and make them fight for you. And that there were language barriers doesn't seem to have mattered so much, because they seem to have used translators, and men in Ingvar it's mentioned that a lot of Swedes could talk several languages. But that's it. I think Sweden had an empire, or the Rus was an empire, but it was very decentralized. And that's also mentioned in the Swedish saga. You had several rulers at the same time in the Swedish, two rulers at the same time, and that could be the relationship between Kiev and Rus, and why Vladimir and Eric could essentially rule the same area. But a lot of Swedes would serve as Varangian guards, and they would provide the first Varangian guard during Vladimir the Great's era.